Welcome back, folks. Cape Rugby TV. We carry on talking about what's happening in the world of Western Province Club Rugby and Western Province Rugby. And, well, we haven't had him on the show with us for a while now, but we're super excited. The head coach of Western Province Rugby, DHL Western Province Rugby, John Dobson. Dobber, great to have you back. How are you, Meneer?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back, JP. It's always a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Dobber, the last time we spoke, we had just started talking about teams, traveling, and I think that one of the words that you used was playing in a cathedral. Clearly still the case. Have you guys adapted now?
I'm not sure. I think there's been a lot of criticism about the product. Across all the teams and the style of rugby and the amount. But I think it's been so unusual, JP. Playing on Boxing Day, the traditional Boxing Day fixture against Griquas, in front of absolutely nobody, in temperatures we're not used to, times of year we're not used to, and in these empty stadiums. Rusty, actually, we had a conference call with Rusty on Friday about some of our players, and he said, our game against the Cheetahs, which wasn't a great game, I don't think, but Tim Spiel kicks a penalty in the last minute to win it. If that stadium had been quite full and the crowd had gone mad, we'd think, jeepers, that was a nice little test match. But I think watching it with an empty stadium, people think, jeepers, what is that about? Another poor game, So it is tough, but I think we're used to it. I don't know how well we're doing it. That's probably the way I say well.
Well, this conversation seems to be happening a lot now, is the ability to adjust, the ability to adapt. And it seems to be, well, if we look at all sports at the moment, it seems that it's the coaches and the players that are able to adapt to the new environment that are going to come out on top of the pile. It's the same in the business environment. Is that a sort of a thought process maybe that's starting to slowly come through? Is that people need to adapt? You need to start thinking electronically. You need to start thinking about the fact that you've got more time that you need to allocate before coming to practice?
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Like last week, it's a week before, so we meant to play the semi-final last week, as you know, and we couldn't because of the Sharks' COVID, or it was postponed, and so we didn't train. So it's really unusual, preparing for a semi-final but not training. But we're not training in order to stay healthy. The guys didn't have to run the risk of cross-infection and stuff. So it is all completely new. Like the energy, just a stupid thing is, before, the guys on the bench and the ball boys, which just tend to be our sort of really spare players, would watch the game and the ball boys would, and the bench would cheer. Now they are fundamental to providing energy on the field. I mean, they must hear the benches. It's not just us. I think we're adapting. And I think it is about understanding, because one of the most curious, I think if I've been nasty now, but it is Cape Rugby TV. I think if you from Ellis Park, you're used to playing in front of an empty stadium. Maybe you can get used to it, but not at Newlands, So we've had to adapt, and I think we have improved with time, which is natural, like you say, as we're trying to adapt.
Well, I must say that from our perspective, at least, we've been able to keep our club rugby guys connected with the fact that you guys are training behind the scenes, how hard you're working. We've been able to speak to a number of your management team, obviously, Labib and Jerome, and the guys have been talking to us, and we've been following your progress, and we know just how hard things have been for you guys. We also understand that, and I think we mentioned it last time, that this is players' jobs. It's their livelihoods that they have to be able to keep going forward on.
Yeah, I think they've obviously had a wage cut in April. Nobody, not you, not me, not any of our relatives or friends, can say lockdown wasn't stressful. It wasn't a holiday. So suddenly to go, and now it seems like we've got to catch up a lot of rugby. We're going to go from this tournament into the next one, Some guys will go into a Lions series, God willing, wherever that is, and then into another Currie Cup, and then into a Pro 16 or whatever it is. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be much respite. So the player stress levels are a concern. I think that's across the board, and that may be another reason why I think we would all agree that we're not seeing rugby that's going to be on a highlights reel forever. And I think that's all contributing factors to it.
DHL New Zealand still, though, is one of those proud factors that we can brag about, is that every time we've got a home game, we're talking about playing at DHL Newlands. And this weekend is, of course, a big game for you guys, up against the Sharks. And if things work your way, well, let's just focus on this game here. It hasn't been easy to get to this point. Yeah, and you've had a few ups and downs, but great stuff on getting into the semi-finals of the Currie Cup. It's still the Currie Cup.
Yeah, and I think we're pleased to go to home semi. I think we're a bit frustrated that, with maybe if there's went for those COVID cancellations, or maybe if we hadn't lost the games to the Bulls or Lions in the last minute, we could have got been better positioned than relying on somebody else for a home final. But to have a home semi, great. We finished 2 points off the Bulls, and the way the season goes, it didn't feel like we'd ever, it doesn't feel like it was like that, as you say. We had our ups and downs. But, we were faced with a choice in Bloemfontein where we got ourselves into a bit of trouble, having led for most of the game pretty well, as most of the games this season. That if we didn't win that game in Kimberley, that could have been that game in Bloemfontein, that game against Griquas on the 26th of January to December could have been our last ever game in Newlands. And that would have been absolutely awful. Griquas in a Boxing Day game. At least we're going to a Currie Cup semi-final now against a big traditional rival like the Sharks. If that is to be the last game in Newlands, and maybe, as you suggest, Japes, if the Lions do us a favour up north, we could host a final here. So there's a lot for us to play for. And the most important thing for us wasn't about getting the semi-final, because I think to get a semi-final in South Africa with there are 5 big teams, as we know, and 4 don't go into 5. So one's always going to drop out. So for us to aim for a semi-final wasn't really everything, because that should be par for Western Province, but it was to get a home semi at Newlands, at DHL Newlands. So that was that. So for that aspect, I'm relieved.
It's fantastic. But before I ask you about the game coming up then this weekend, you mentioned it now, Tweede Nuwejaar, Boxing Day. How is that? I mean, it's completely upside down.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's something we may have to get used to in the Pro 16, and maybe cricketers are used to. But to have a captain's practice on Christmas Day is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So I had to tell them no trifle and that sort of stuff. But I think mentally it feels hard because, we're not like Europe where August everybody goes away. The whole of Europe shuts down for August. Our guys' families were all in Stilbaai or wherever they went on the beach. But I think the 26th they're still out on the beach. But so it's really, I think that is tough for the guys, because our whole DNA is to wire down over Christmas and Easter and go off and be with your family, and to come into work in Belleville, it was tricky, and not just for us, for all teams, I presume. Unless Griquas, in which case it's a relief to come to Cape Town.
No, it's testimony to the kind of sacrifice that you guys are making. I mean, or at least that professional athletes have to make. The dynamics have changed, and as I said, we're aware of just how hard you have to work to stay at the top of the pile. But then this coming weekend is, of course, a home semi at Newlands, DHL Newlands. You're up against the Sharks this weekend. The Bulls are up against the Lions. And if you win this, and if things work out your way, you might have another, well, not a home semi, but a final.
I mean, it was an opposite way, James. You also schooled and grew up in that area in Newlands. So it'd be an opposite way to say goodbye to the grand old lady if it is indeed the farewell. So, but as I say, through our mistakes, we can't control that. If we'd won the game against the Bulls, we could have controlled that the final would be there. But so we'll be watching that Lions game with interest. The Sharks, they've had a lot of COVID cases. So they're probably in the 20s, what's the rumor is. So they probably got herd immunity with COVID. So I expect them to be putting out a really, really strong team. They beat us in Super Rugby just before lockdown. So it's going to be, I think, a cracker of a game.
On a final note, Dobbo, the spirit in the team, the players, we know it's difficult out there. We know it's COVID. Tremendous amount of challenges, the kind of stuff that you didn't think about when one started playing rugby at the age of 9 or 10. And the world is completely different now. How's the spirit in the team? We know that you are a maestro at keeping the team spirit high.
No, they're in great shape. They really are. It's a happy team, motivated. They're very well aware of the privilege of playing for Western Province, those blue and white stripes to us. And even guys like Sia and Skara have been Kitsi Frano 10 years in the system. They still think that blue and white hoops is the most beautiful jersey in the world. And they know the history of Newlands. They started here as under 19s. So they literally are desperate. And I hope we haven't clicked this year properly. And I think we're all desperate to this week. But they're happy, and they'll let every bit of blood out there on Saturday afternoon. I do guarantee you that.
Fantastic stuff. Dobbo, we'll leave it at that. We wish you guys the very, very best of luck for the weekend. And looking forward to catching up again soon.
Well, thanks, JP. Thanks for all you're doing. And I really hope, we're actually talking about it today as a squad. It's so curious. We're only playing. Really hope the schools, and especially the clubs, because depend on playing, for their survival and their livelihood, can get on the field as soon as possible, God willing, because, we want to be a team that's close to the clubs and the schools. And if they're not playing, it really does feel like bubbled, we're in a vacuum. So the sooner that, the better. So keep going with your initiative and keeping our guys focused and happy, and hopefully get onto the field sooner than later this year.
Thanks, Dobbo. There we go, folks. DHL, Western Province Rugby, and of course DHL Stormers head coach John Dobson. And we wish our boys the very best of luck as they take on the Sharks at Newlands this coming weekend. We're looking forward to that. It's going to be very exciting. Folks, please remember, you can find us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Cape Rugby TV. And we are looking for your comments so that we can start including them in the show. We want to know what you are up to. We want to see your well wishes for the other clubs. We want to know what your players are up to, your members. And we're going to start including your name in our ticker line here at the bottom of the show, so that we can, see what you're up to and keep you connected. Folks, don't forget, of course, you need to be always wearing that mask, wash your hands regularly, and practice social distancing. It's vital that we stay in this thing together to help prevent the spread of COVID. We will see you again next week, same time, same place. Have a fantastic rugby weekend. Bye-bye.